Anthony Fauci is raising alarm over the unintended consequences of fast tracking a vaccine for coronavirus. Now we know what the potential consequences could be, approving a vaccine that could actually cause more harm than do good. But Fauci is actually talking about the chilling effect it could have on other potential vaccines that could be more effective. So he tells Reuters the following: the one thing that you would not want to see with a vaccine is getting emergency use authorization before you have a signal of efficacy. One of the potential dangers if you prematurely let a vaccine out is that it would make it difficult, if not impossible, for other vaccines to enroll people in their trial. Now, if you're someone who's worried about coronavirus and you see that there's already a vaccine out in the market, you're much less likely to participate in clinical trials if something is out there and you can just take that vaccine. And that vaccine, especially if it's been fast tracked and it was given emergency use authorization without the very necessary trials beforehand, well, you could be exposing yourself to something dangerous. And there is good reason for the concern here. As we know, Donald Trump pressured the FDA to issue emergency use authorization for a plasma treatment for coronavirus patients. Now that plasma treatment appears to work in about 30% of cases, roughly. But the problem with that research is that scientists haven't been able to do the accurate clinical trials where they control for variables, right? Right now we have situations in which coronavirus patients might be getting that plasma treatment in addition to other treatments like remdesivir. So without a controlled study, it's really hard to come up with accurate numbers on the efficacy of that plasma treatment. Now, Donald Trump referred to the FDA as part of the deep state because they were refusing to approve that treatment. And now there's good reason to believe that Donald Trump will do the same when it comes to this particular vaccine. And to be clear, there are several vaccines that are being researched right now, including from pharmaceutical companies like Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson is also working on a potential vaccine as well. So I want to just quickly go to this video of Trump at a press conference where he's starting to hint at pressuring the FDA at approving a vaccine before doing the necessary research.
This is the only possible, and it's only made possible because of Operation Warp Speed. That is everybody working together. We're years ahead of approvals. So we would be if we went by the speed levels of past administration. We'd be 2 years, 3 years behind where we are today. And that includes in vaccines that you'll be hearing about very soon, very shortly. To deliver treatments and vaccine to save lives, we're removing unnecessary barriers and delays.
Emma, when does this dystopian hellscape end? I'm so fed up with it.
When we elect socialist Joe Biden, who will make it a socialist utopia, as I was told last night at the RNC. Don't think people understand that utopia actually means good, but I guess that's Republicans for you. What sticks out to me in this story is, yeah, Trump, idiot. We all know he's such a moron, wants to take shortcuts. He has two modes: just ignore coronavirus and pretend it doesn't exist, or two, get duped by slimy greaseball CEOs and people trying to promote their products into fast tracking unsafe things like hydroxychloroquine. Now the MyPillow guy with the plant extract that he's trying to say cures coronavirus. I mean, countless instances of Trump just getting fooled by this. But what sticks out to me is when you mentioned all the pharmaceutical companies there that are working on vaccines independently. Another, I think, under the radar stupid thing the Trump administration is doing is they're just handing out billions of dollars in payments to these companies, which I understand, I guess on its face, we want to do Operation Warp Speed and make sure we get a vaccine as quickly as possible. How much more quickly would we be getting a vaccine if the Trump administration was smart, asked these companies to pool their resources and incentivized it financially so that research could be shared, as opposed to this race where they're all bidding for it when honestly, this is beyond pharmaceutical profits. This is about getting life back to normal and saving countless lives. We've had over 170,000 Americans die of COVID-19. So the government would be well within its rights to mandate some sort of pooling of information of these big pharma giants and then say, okay, then you'll get your payout later, because there have been reports that some of the companies that have been given payments by the federal government are already leveraging that into stock options for their CEOs, who are getting millions and millions of dollars in payouts. No, I know, but like, if
Emma,
you had a government that was functioning,
sweet
that's
Emma.
the simple solution.
Sweet Emma, I love you so much. We live in America, Emma. You're asking private pharmaceutical companies that are not in it in any way, shape, or form for our best interest or for our health. You're asking them to pool their resources together. You're asking them for a collectivist effort to do the right thing for humanity. Are you kidding?
The government in an ideal world could, if Bernie Sanders were president, that's what he would do, and that's what I would do, and that's what you would do. But of course, Trump does the opposite and just fiscal conservative Republican throws out money to these companies and says, do whatever you want with it. And whoever comes up with the product first wins, when that's not gonna lead to an effective long-term solution. They cannot think more than 3 weeks ahead of time. It's unbelievable how bad these Republicans are at thinking long-term.
Well, I mean, they don't have an incentive under this system to think that way. They just don't. What you're proposing, of course, makes a lot of sense. But the whole defense of our hyper capitalistic society is competition is great, it leads to innovation. I mean, we've dealt with that type of pro-capitalist, propaganda for how long? So, to think that any president, with the exception of possibly a Bernie Sanders administration, pushing for that type of collectivist approach it's just like fantasy land, really. And I wish that weren't true. But let me just say, Donald Trump might be willing to pour resources into these private companies in order to fast track a vaccine, which, by the way, might even be a vaccine that doesn't have to go through the same type of FDA regulations and testing that should be done. But we'll be gouged later, right? Like I don't believe in for 1 second that this vaccine is necessarily going to be like readily available to anyone. So that terrifies me as well. I mean, Trump is awful. There's no question about it. And Trump has further compounded the terrible way this country has handled the pandemic. But we were already ill prepared to deal with any pandemic, right? Donald Trump just makes it worse. Our system is uniquely set up in a way that puts us at a disadvantage. And when you have tens of millions of Americans lose their jobs and then lose their healthcare that comes along with those jobs, you would think that this giant, issue that's confronting all of us right now would convince politicians, Democrats especially, to change course and maybe push for something like single payer healthcare that isn't tied to employers. But of course they're not doing that. Of course.
Luckily, we have a Democratic president who, even if he has a supermajority, has said he would veto Medicare for all if it went to his desk. So yeah, we are living in the worst timeline. It blows my mind.
I mean, every poll that I've seen has shown a majority of Americans, and these polls include Republicans, it's a nationally representative sample, shows the majority of Americans want single payer healthcare. The latest poll that I saw was from The Hill, indicating that 69% of Americans want single payer healthcare. About 40, if I'm not mistaken, 49% of Republican voters said that they prefer single payer healthcare, which is a pretty high number for Republican voters who have been fed all sorts of anti-single payer healthcare propaganda by dishonest actors and right-wing media. But you would never think that the numbers are that high if you listen to people like Rahm Emanuel or Joe Biden or anyone in the Democratic Party who thinks that moderate policies are the way to go. So yeah, we will continue to be in a uniquely terrible situation. And while I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump is particularly awful in responding to the pandemic, let's not make a mistake about how our system was already structured in a way that put us at a disadvantage.
Want to win a free electric scooter? Well, our partners at Aspiration and Zoom Electric are making it possible. All you have to do is head to tyt.com/greensummer for your chance to win.